Hi, hello, my name is Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and welcome back to my office. So this is not an angle that anyone normally sees because this is not a pretty angle, but everything over on that side is kind of under renovation. So today we are going to be decorating my office for my spooky season, setting up some very pretty aesthetic things. I just finished up a table that has to be brought in, and then after that we are going to spend some time and go over my October TBR because oh boy do I have some really cool stuff in there and I'm ready to talk about it. So let's get going with some decorating.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. Anxiety, filling up every space, no privacy. And silently, it could build and build until you finally see, whoa, it's taking over, damn no closure, moving closer. No exposure, I just wanna be a loner. Some can't stay sober, looking over all their shoulders, like moving boulders just to get out of the home. It sucks, I've had enough, I don't wanna feel the stuck under the rug, all my problems that I shove. I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I've been feeling weird, I can't seem to focus good enough, nothing's really clear, sometimes it could be a little tough, I just need to feel like the end's in sight for me.
Okay, hello, so welcome to my newly decorated little space. I've got my little corner set up, so now I have multiple very cute filming options to choose from as we move forward with the best part of the year, fall and winter. So as you can see, I have my spooky little tiny village on my horror shelf. Those are both horror shelves. And speaking of horror, let's get into my October TBR filled with spooky season stories. So the way that this is gonna go is I have some of the books here. Most of them I'm getting from the library from various different sources, online, in person, whatever. Some of these are going to be ebooks, some of these are going to be audiobooks, and some of these are going to be physical books. So I'm going to go over, I have a list ready, and we're just kind of going in order of how I made my list. So let's start with the Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. So this is one of her earlier books. I think this was published in 2020 in comparison to what I've been reading, which are her more recent publications. Now this I'm really excited about. So what I understand of it is basically like alternate reality fiction where our main character encounters beasts and creatures who feed on her and her fear. And I think that sounds so incredible, and I mostly say that because I recently read House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, and that had some little creepy crawly creatures coming from alternate like universes, dimensions, whatever you want to call it. She did such an amazing job at making those things the most terrifying thing I had ever experienced in my life. So I'm kind of holding this up to the same standard of A House with Good Bones, just in a very different way. Our main character supposedly goes in a bunker and she finds like the secret door that leads to alternate realities and she goes in and explores and has to deal with the consequences of those actions, which obviously cannot be good. So that's going to be amazing. I'm super excited for it. Next we have To Break a Covenant by Allison Ames. So this is supposed to be for people who really liked like Wilder Girls and and Sawmill Girls, and I haven't read either of those, so I don't know if I'm gonna like this or not, but like, let's just look at this cover. Like, this cover speaks to me. I think that this cover is stunning, and I found it on a list of sapphic horror. So basically, this is supposed to be about a group of teen girls who are trying to solve a haunting in an old, unstable mine. They live in an old mining town that the mines kind of collapsed, set on fire, and they've kind of been burning ever since. So their town has kind of turned into a tourist town surrounding these mines. So this book has to do not only with the mines, but with the trauma kind of growing up in a town that's just overrun and focuses on tourism as a way of life, and ultimately the suffering of community as this whole giant traumatic scenario where people lost their loved ones now turns into a tourist trap for everyone else to come and enjoy. So that sounds like heartbreaking, and I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like my brain is focusing more on like the trauma of having this horrific thing happen to your entire community and tourists coming in and just being like, oh, how spooky, like just like living in your trauma. Like, I'm really holding on to that part of it, so I don't know if I'm gonna like that. I think this might be the book on my list that I'm like the most unsure of, because I'm definitely unsure of it, especially because the comparison books are ones that I've never read and I've never really been interested in reading. So we'll see how it goes. So then I'm doing an episode of what I'm going to be referring to as nostalgia reads. I was a big reader in middle school until I hit like a point where I was like, I'm too cool for books or whatever, and I wasn't. I was so lame. I was so lame and so autistic, but whatever. So I have a bunch of old childhood series that I loved that I never finished the series because they kept coming out after I was like I got out of reading for like a couple years, and then I dived immediately back into it. I got out of reading for a couple years and I went into anime for a couple years. If that tells you my place in the social hierarchy, it's fine. So last year for Spookyween or whatever, I don't even remember what it was called, I read Gilda Joyce Psychic Investigator, which was the first book in the Gilda Joyce series written by Jennifer Allison, and I had so much fun diving back into this. I really liked like paranormal horror as a kid. I still really love paranormal horror. I started reading this series back, I think in like either late elementary school or very early middle school, and now I just want to keep going. I think I've read 3 out of the 5 books that are within this series, but in my reread, I've only read The Psychic Investigator, so this month I am planning on reading Ladies of the Lake. Our main character, Gilda, she is like this really eccentric like kid who just causes mass chaos. In The Psychic Investigator, she went to San Francisco to be with her uncle and her cousin, like unexpectedly, and she solved a haunting in the tower behind their house after her cousin's mother had herself. So she solved that haunting, which gave me a lot of insight into who I was as a child, remembering that I was reading books about parents who had themselves. So Ladies of the Lake is her second paranormal investigation. She investigates a mysterious death at a Catholic girls' school. It's supposed to be like a comparison, like, is there group hysteria within this like school, or is the lake actually haunted? And then we have the Ghost Sonata, which I actually have my physical copy of already. This is the 3rd book in the series. Her best friend, Wendy, qualifies to compete in an international piano competition in Oxford. Gilda, of course, finds a way to go with her in this whole scenario. And Wendy ultimately starts having nightmares, like really ghostly nightmares, and when Gilda finds like a ghostly message written to Wendy, she gets super concerned that Wendy's life might be in danger. So spooky ooky ooky. The fourth book in the series, which I've never read before, is called The Dead Drop. Gilda lands a summer internship at Washington, D.C.'s International Spy Museum. She finds herself embroiled in both a museum haunting and a real case of espionage. While investigating a cemetery where Abraham Lincoln's son was once buried, Gilda stumbles upon a spy's dead drop of classification information. Gilda's efforts to decode the cryptic message lead to further intrigues. So that sounds chaotic as hell. I don't know what was wrong with me, but I loved this series so much. Okay, and then the fifth book in the series is called The Bones of the Holy. When Gilda Joyce's mother gets engaged to a man from St. Augustine, Florida, Gilda is appalled. She hasn't even given him the Joyce family application yet. But as the wedding preparations get underway, Gilda realizes the application is the least of her worries. Spooky St. Augustine is riddled with ghost stories and unsolved mysteries, and Gilda has problems of her own. Why does her soon-to-be stepdad keep calling Mrs. Joyce by his ex-wife's name? And why is Mrs. Joyce acting like she's possessed? With only a few short days before the wedding, Gilda knows this much for sure. It's going to take every ounce of her sleuthing skill and psychic savvy to solve this one. This also these last two sound the most chaotic of the series. Like, I feel like Jennifer Allison really, like, started off the series, like, strong. Like, you can kind of see something like this unfolding. And I feel like it just kind of progressively gets more chaotic as we go. I'm super excited. I still think that these books are so fun as a 24-year-old. Like, obviously it's not the most, like, stimulating and educational literature in the world, but I think they are so fun. And honestly, if you are in your 20s, 30s, and you want something that's kind of like light paranormal stories, I really recommend the Gilda Joyce Investigative series by Jennifer Allison. For the nostalgia, for the comfort, for the spooky vibes, and because it's just like a really light, I'm just reading through this, enjoying my time kind of series. The next one I am the most excited about for this entire month. It's called How to Be Eaten by Maria Adelman. This is basically like a fairy tale kind of vibe book. It's been recommended for people who love Carmen Maria Machado, who she is one of my all-time favorite authors. I love her with my entire being. So this stars kind of like 5 women who have been through fairy tales, kind of. They don't call it fairy tales, but we all know them as fairy tales. It's like the main woman in Bluebeard story, Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, Rumpelstiltskin, and there's one other one that I can't really figure out. They describe it as like a dating show, so maybe Cinderella? What do I know? I don't know anything. The 5 of them are in group therapy to like go over the trauma of their relationships. It's a modern take on these fairy tale women and the struggle of their lives and what brought them together. So I'm really, really interested in it. I think that it's going to be amazing. The cover looks incredible. I'm just all for it. The next one that I'll be picking up is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So this is a super classic, like, gothic story, and I've been meaning to read it for so long. It is so incredibly short, but it's all about this woman who was prescribed rest on the coast for her illnesses or whatever, and I believe her husband and her father end up locking her in a room where she starts to see like horrifying things in the wallpaper as she slowly goes insane from the isolation of the entire scenario. So super short, but such a classic that I have yet to read, and that's such a shame. Next, I will be picking up The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This will be my second book read by her. I read Mexican Gothic by her, and I absolutely was obsessed with it. I know that it's a very hit or miss book because it's very, like, flowery, gothic, like, it's my vibe. It's not everyone's vibe, but it's my vibe. So this is supposed to be like a loose retelling of The Island of Dr. Moreau, a 1996 novel by H.G. Wells, but it's set in Mexico. I don't really know that story, like, at all. So I'm just kind of going to trust that this is a loose retelling and that it's, like, kind of accurate for the most part. What do I really care? So this is set in Mexico, and it's focused on a young woman and her father. So I'm just kind of hoping that this is another, like, stunning Latino Gothic story. I can't get enough of Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I think that her writing is stunning, and it really, really works for me. So I'm just kind of excited to dive right into this. So next is actually Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I have read this before. I think this is one of the most terrifying books that I've ever read in my entire life. The Coraline movie is my comfort movie, and I have watched it probably over 20 times already. And as someone who does not watch movies because I don't have the attention span for them, that's really impressive. So I will be reading through this and annotating it this month, and I'm really excited to do so. I haven't read this in quite a few years. I'm just ready to pick back up and to be traumatized by it because it is real scary, and I am a whim. Ooh. So the next book is another one of the ones that I'm, like, the most excited for. It's Providence Girls. I forget the author's name at this exact moment. So this is more sapphic mermaids. So this is about sacrifice and chaos and just, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but I found this author on TikTok and I saw the cover and it just grasped me. Like, oh, I became obsessed with it immediately. So I have to read it now. And I am super into sapphic mermaids. I read Ice Massacre by someone, I don't even remember who. I didn't really like it that much. So I've been looking for, like, really good sapphic mermaids ever since. So I think that this could be amazing. I haven't heard other people talk about it, but I've heard the author talk about it, and I'm like, you know what? What the hell? I'll just go with it. So the next one I have is the biggest book out of all of them, and it is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. Look at this monster. I wasn't expecting it to be this big, like, at all. And I was gonna do the audiobook for it, and then I heard that there are, like, illustrations and pictures on the inside, and I was like, well, I want to see that. So I'm gonna try to read it physically and see what happens. So this is marketed for people who love The Haunting of Hill House, which I am obsessed with. I have watched that series at least 3 times now. It's about a 1900s boarding school filled with horror and tragedy, and it becomes the inspiration for a best-selling author's novel, which then becomes a film adaptation. And as soon as our group of 3 women come on set of the abandoned grounds of this school, time really starts to become blurry, and the past and the present start to, like, bend together. And what I've really heard is that this is supposed to be, like, a really interesting, like, time kind of warp play out, which I'm super interested in seeing in terms of, like, writing. Like, I loved the way that they played with time in The Haunting of Hill House, but I'm curious to see how it plays out on page in comparison to the series, because I have read The Haunting of Hill House by, oh my god, I don't even remember her name. Her first name is Shelley, I think. And it didn't, like, play with time in that capacity. Like, it was a very different story than what the TV series on Netflix was. So I thought both were good, but I'm kind of curious to see how some of the aspects I love of Haunting of Hill House are done in a book form. But I'm really, really intimidated by that size, I'm not gonna lie. The next one I have is gonna be an audiobook. I, for some stupid reason, haven't not picked up a Tiffany D. Jackson book yet, which I don't even know what's wrong with me, because I've seen Tiffany D. Jackson be, like, being highlighted for, like, years now, and I still have not picked up one of her books yet, which, my fault. I'm the problem here. So I'm starting with The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, which is a modern day Carrie retelling. I am picking this up more because I am interested in Tiffany D. Jackson. I am not someone who reads Stephen King. I don't really enjoy Stephen King's writing, so I've never read Carrie originally. Like, I've seen the original Carrie as a movie. I've seen, like, the newer version of Carrie. I mean, they were fine. They didn't, like, leave, like, a super big impact on me like the Pet Sematary did. But I'm curious to see if Tiffany D. Jackson does it in a way that, like, interests me more. I'm pretty sure that our main character is biracial. I'm just kind of interested to see what she does with the story and if it ends up grasping my attention a little bit more. And then that's not it for Tiffany D. Jackson, because I was going to just do The Weight of Blood, like give her one chance, see if I like her writing, whatever. But then I read the synopsis for White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson, and that sounded much more my vibe. So this is another recommendation for people who love The Haunting of Hill House, and that's all I really need to hear. Like, genuinely, that's it. If you say, like, this is good for people who love The Haunting of Hill House, I'm immediately in. I am in there. I love paranormal, spooky stuff. So, of course I'm picking up White Smoke too. I'm gonna do the audiobook of that one. I might end up reading that one first, because that one interests me a little bit more, just in the content alone. Okay, and then I have finally decided that I will be picking up, also as an audiobook, because I couldn't find it physically from any library. Hoopla has it as an audiobook. Ace of Spades. Now, absolutely, like, tear my ass to shreds if I mispronounce this, because I wrote down, like, the phonetic breakdown of how to say this author's name, so I have no excuse. By Farida Abike Eyemede. I really hope I got that right. Please tell me if I'm wrong. So this is something that I've been putting off reading for quite a while, because all I really was hearing about it was, like, dark academia, like, everyone was talking about it, but no one was actually, like, talking about it. They were just like, if you like dark academia, go to this. And I'm like, that's not enough. So the way that I understand it, it's like a spooky dark academia setting at a school with dangerous blackmailing classmates, which I think is more interesting than just, like, saying it's for dark academia. I feel like this book deserves more than just the label as, like, one of the dark academia books to read. Same with Ninth House. Like, everyone's like, it's dark academia, but it's like, it's so much more. So I'm kind of just expecting that this ends up being so much more than the label that people have just put on it. And I'm really interested to give it a chance. You know, finally. I feel like I'm, like, the last one on the bandwagon for this book. But, you know, doing my best. And then I have no self-control whatsoever. So I bought a copy of Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. I read Hell Followed With Us, like, maybe a month or two ago, and I liked it, but it definitely held a lot of religious trauma, which is not something that I have to deal with, and it also held a lot of, like, body horror and gore, which is not really my vibe. It seemed like Hell Followed With Us was a great book for my partner, who loves body horror and gore and stuff like that. But then I started seeing him put out little feelers of this, which is a Victorian trans mask autistic character, which is really all he had to say. Like, the second those words came out of his mouth, I was like, this one's it. This one's gonna be for me. This one is going to be for me. And, like, look at this cover. Like, this is beautiful. This is stunning. This is everything I could have ever wanted. Do I know what else it's about? No, I have no idea what else this is about. I spent $20 on this, and I have no idea what it's about, other than the fact that it is a trans mask autistic main character. I really liked Andrew Joseph White's. I just opened this for the first time and it's signed. It kind of looks like it's, like, actually This is signed with Sharpie. This is like actually a signed copy. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, I have no idea what this is about other than that, but I really enjoyed his writing style in his first book. So, well, now that we've just gone through that together, where I just found out that this was a signed copy, this was not advertised as a signed copy at my local Books A Million, but this is definitely a hand-signed copy, and I think I might cry right now. Yeah, I know nothing else about this, but I am so excited to get this started, and I will probably be annotating this because I really think this one is like gonna be for me, and I truly can't wait. There's one other book that I will be reading. I've started reading it this month, but it's going to be going into next month, and that is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. I somehow got the first copy on Libby from my library, because I had A Study in Drowning tagged as a notify me when it comes out, when you receive it, and I was the first person who got it. So now I'm just sitting here and I'm like, oh my god, I have like mediocre feelings about Ava Reid stories. Like, I haven't really like fully enjoyed one yet. And yet here I am with an ebook for A Study in Drowning. So it's supposed to be part historical fantasy, part rivals to lovers romance, part gothic mystery, and all haunting dreamlike atmosphere. Ava Reid's powerful YA debut will lure you in, readers who love the Atlas 6, House of Salt and Sorrows, or Girl, Serpent, and Thorn. Okay, that gives me really good vibes, because I haven't read the Atlas 6, but I did read House of Salt and Sorrows, which I loved. That was fantastic. I need to get a physical copy of that. And I have read Girl, Serpent, Thorn, which I did really enjoy. So that gives me really good vibes. And maybe I'll like this more because it's YA, and maybe Ava Reid and her adult stuff just isn't for me. We're adding that on. Let's do a count of how many books I have my TBR for the month of October. So The Hollow Places, To Break a Covenant, Gilda Joyce, Ladies of the Lake, Ghost Sonata, The Dead Drop, The Bones of the Holy, How to Be Eaten, The Yellow Wallpaper, Daughter of Dr. Moreau, Coraline, so we're at 10, Providence Girls, Plain Bad Heroines, The Weight of Blood, White Smoke, Ace of Spades, so we're at 15, Spirit Bares Its Teeth, so I think I'm at like a 16 book TBR for this month. Oops. It's fine. We're gonna power through. We got this. So that brings us to the end of this decorating and October spooky TBR. My TBR is just filled with like some fantastic stuff, and I'm so excited for the spooky season because it's really focused on paranormal horror. And I've finally gotten away from that like reading crappy thrillers. And yes, I do say that. I don't like thrillers. I don't like them. So I'm really excited to get into a TBR that I feel really confident in. So with that, I guess I should get started on reading. I hope that everyone's having a fantastic week. The month of October is going to be it for everyone. I hope that it's fantastic, and I will see everyone next time. Bye.